I know coming from.
more Tuesday,
Yep.
Friday, and then the Metro Vancouver housing.
Okay, oh, yes, good. Information items maybe?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
Those are discussion items.
No,
No. So, I think maybe 5.3 and then it moves to maybe 5.4.
5.4 then?
So
Okay.
5.3 would be.
5.3 will make that
Yeah.
one, Metro Housing. Yeah, I got that nice glossy,
The 10-year plan.
yeah, it looks great. And then that's 5.3, and then 5.4 is going to be the move to the close, right? All right, anybody else have anything they'd like to add or subtract, or? What we are going to do is this 5.4 under new business is going to be moved to a closed meeting. There are segments of the densification that I would like to move there. And I'll talk about that when we do talk about, well, you know what, we're going to move that whole densification section in.
Okay.
So when we get to that, I'll let you know. All right, so somebody move the approval? Okay, David and Tom, I'll take you as a second, and everyone all in favor. Thank you, that is unanimous. The adoption of the minutes, has everybody had a chance to look through there? There's Maureen. No problem. We waited as long as we could. Do you have anything, have you had a chance to even look at the agenda?
Oh, I have.
Yeah. You okay?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. And so anybody have any problems with the minutes from the last meeting?
Sorry I'm late, everybody.
Oh, no problem, Russ, no problem. Good to have you here. So I was just looking under new business there, and the second bullet, swapping land with school district 45 to access Bowen Court area on lot 2 could be considered. It's not really, it's just lot 2. I don't see a huge problem there. To access lot 2,
Travis, okay?
if you don't mind.
Okay.
Thank you. And that was it for me. And adoption of the minutes as amended. Thank you, Dennis. Second, Fritz. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, we're moving on. Public comments. Don, anything? Okay, thank you. Business arising from the minutes. Okay, so here we are, community land, lot 2 access update. Now, Glenn, you don't have anything on that, do you?
Nope.
Okay, so I didn't do a whole bunch of work on it. For some reason, I talked to Maureen about that this morning, and I thought that she had a little bit of a bullet on it, but she doesn't, which is fine. I would relate to our conversation, and I must admit that I haven't done any digging in and drilling down on it. I think what we should do, and Maureen and I, with our previous discussions with Metro Parks, they are amenable. Oh, isn't that lovely? Thank you. They are amenable to land swaps, or if we need land, or if we can swap in some land, or that sort of thing. They will talk, and David, you can pipe in anytime too. It is not. I did find out that it is not School District 45 that we're interested in. It's actually going to be through here somewhere, which is Metro Parks in here. So somewhere in here, and I know Glenn, you've had a look at it, and it's fairly steep here, and it gets a little better in here, but I don't know. I would like to take this piece of property here and just trade it over here or something. We'll see how that goes. But drilling down on this, I think there has to be some work done. So when we go to Metro Parks, we have, okay, here's what we want to do. And we have a reasonable, I don't think we have to survey at this point in time until we find out if we get some kind of an idea from them what this is going to look like. But I think we have to do our homework first. And I mean, and provide a good case for having to come off here rather than on the main drag over here, which is going to be not very safe. There are obviously safety issues. It would be much better, much more manageable on this side. So what I would like to do is get kind of a council approval that we do start investigating, you know, and we'll get Glenn involved in that sort of thing and investigating that avenue for coming in. We'll have to have some rudimentary drawings, and that sort of thing. Now, how does everybody feel about that? Yeah, Dave, go ahead.
I'm quite happy with the idea, although I don't know about that riparian piece. I'd like, there's an opportunity.
Well, that's right
to-
there.
Yeah, well, that's blue stuff, and I don't know, I didn't even know there was a creek there. I think, well, anyway, I don't know, so that's something to comment.
It's gonna require a bridge for
Well,
sure.
or something.
We'll get Ellen Whitehead there just to take a look
Okay.
at this.
But my bigger point is that I'm happy with the idea, but I think we should consider have a look at some other opportunities too. Is that you don't want to be going back and forth with Metro saying, hey, how about another trade? I think there's some, you know, other opportunities you might want to look at and find some areas that they would really be happy to have to
Yeah.
add to their park. And in other words, you
Well,
know,
it'll certainly be a negotiation, there's no question about it.
Have
Can
a
you
look
think
at-
of anything offhand?
well, I'm thinking of, yeah, there's an array of things that would be nice to have Metro Vancouver involvement in terms of expanding certain parks, looking at the Crown Lands, that route along the water line going up to Raptor Lake. Other ideas that Maureen would be aware of, that I know there have been discussions over time, thoughts about it, but I like to think of it in a comprehensive way, that's all.
Yeah.
I support David's point about approaching it comprehensively
Yeah.
and having some things in hand that are potential sites to exchange. But I also think that this discussion is probably more appropriate and closed when we're talking about specific pieces of land.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, yeah. We won't talk about specific pieces of land right now. And I think that'll be their comeback. I'm sure that they have some issues or some pieces that they might find desirable,
Yeah.
but,
I think we have an advantage in that the person who is in charge is responsible for both housing and parks.
mhm.
And that's something that we haven't had before.
Yeah,
So if we're having a discussion to enable access to lands that are going to be used for housing purposes, I think he will hear it in a slightly different way than somebody who's just responsible for protecting parkland.
yes, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Sorry, but that just changed. There was an announcement yesterday afternoon.
They changed the structure again.
Yeah, well, the new CAO has made a little bit of a change in structure, so Robbie is no longer the person in charge of the two. Things have moved around a bit.
Never mind.
Cancel all the above.
But the new person who's in charge of parks, I know really well, and the new person's in charge of housing, I've worked with for years.
Good.
Who are they, David?
Heather McNell, in charge of housing, housing and planning, and in terms of parks, it's Neil Carley. So
Oh, yeah.
Neil, Parks and Environment.
Well, we've had this conversation with Neil
Yeah.
previously.
Yeah.
So,
So they're both really great people.
That's good, but I think we should get some direction from council because it is gonna, you know, there could be some monies involved and that sort of thing. So, I guess we have to come up with, I didn't come up with any stuff
I
that,
can come up with something. What do you want to say?
well, it's just that, Mayor Standing Committee and Community Lands, request council approve, investigation into, access to lot 2 of the community lands off of Grafton Road.
maybe broaden it, just potential land swaps with Metro
Yeah.
Vancouver Parks.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
including potential land swap, including potential land swap.
That the committee requests that council approve investigation into potential land swaps with Metro Vancouver Parks.
And the access, well, did you get the access part of it in there?
Oh, you want access and,
Including access.
Including access to lot 2 off of
Okay.
Grafton.
David, a question? Like, does Metro Vancouver has clear objectives or plans for lands they own? Like, is it Is there clarity what they're trying to achieve here?
No, I don't think so, but Maureen would have a better answer to that.
No, really.
I would say yes,
Okay, there you go.
but that their plans are not focused on areas that we're
Right,
focused on.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
and the rest goes
It
to
would be nice to have a list of what they'd like to do. Have a list of the bottlenecks even at the meeting. You know what I mean?
Carrie.
Yes.
And just so Bonnie and Shauna were here.
Yes, they are, to
Um,
talk to it, yeah.
Yeah, in part because we have, at a staff level, looked at putting in a trail from Mount Gardner Road to the bike park. So
Okay.
over this same route, and so dealing at a staff level with Metro Vancouver, what sort of the staff expectations of access through that route would be for a pedestrian and bike trail, but I don't know if they have things they want to share about.
Okay, well,
you know,
why
what
don't,
Metro
uh,
Vancouver's sort of expectations would be.
I think it was touched upon already as far as our clearing area is concerned.
Yeah.
It is quite a wide band of wetted area, wetland area. There was, a lot of concerns at the staff level when we put in the bike park to employ mitigation measures at that time to alleviate any potential problems or impacts to that clearing area. So, but they definitely were, amenable to going that route, low impact. I mean, we're talking pedestrian, bike, cyclist path at that time, but definitely needed a span, a bridge, as was
Yes,
talked
definitely.
about already. And one thing too, just with where the bike park is, the bike park is kind of in this area here. Right in that area, so just to keep that in mind, that there is this sort of, kids are coming from different angles, they're coming from Metro Park, they're coming up through the trail by the snake fields, so into the bike park area, and there's a little span here, and the bike park sort of sits right in here, because the topography, and I had gone back to council to, prize council of moving it, because initially we were gonna put it down in this corner, but the topography wasn't conducive to a good bike park, so it does sit about like right in here. So it's-
Yeah, so we'd have to come in before it. Well, the bike park isn't set in stone either. I mean, it's definitely movable, and this isn't something that's gonna happen next year, for sure. Yeah, Tom?
Is that a point to be discussed with Metro Vancouver, the bike park? Could that be something that could potentially be moved into the park boundary rather than on lot 2? Good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could certainly be part of the discussion.
It would not be within the general mandate of Metro Parks to provide that kind of facility on their lands.
Okay.
So-
Yeah, if we wanted to get it.
They did remove the previous bike park off of their land for liability reasons, which is why we built this one on municipal land.
Okay.
I guess
Oh.
it might be a consideration if there is a road pushing through there as well, that we would just need to mitigate some safety measures there. If you've got kids walking around on bikes and they are on that edge of the bike park doing jumps and things like that, so we
Mhm.
don't necessarily want a road running right beside.
No, but
There's no, how much space there is there.
yeah, both very valid points, and I like the idea of, even though there's an incredible amount of work that went into the bike park, but it is being able to change. But if you say that there's a liability issue for Metro Parks about the bike park.
Well, they had built structures, they had a little bit of a
That's true.
different type of
It was a little bit
bike
different,
park,
yeah. Well, it'll certainly be part of the discussion. I still think that's a favorable, and mostly because of the discussion Glenn and I had about just the accesses, and because both those other roads are gonna be very busy, whether it's Trunk Road or Miller, are gonna be very hard to manage. Certainly a lot harder than Mount Gardner at this point in time. But yeah, somehow we've got to get in there, and we've got to show an access. Maureen?
I'm not clear on, did you just want to bring to our attention the path between Mount Gardner and the bike park, or?
Staff asked us to be here, just to sort of bring, at a staff level, our discussions
Good.
about any concerns that were raised,
Okay.
working with Metro for the low impact trail,
Okay.
and just to point out where the bike park is. I think that's
And the trail is in the works at this point?
No, it's not. It was decided not to. It was really brought forward by Scott Slater because of potential car cyclist impacts
Right.
or risks to kids entering into the bike park. So he thought that maybe going around and skirting through Metro would be safer for the kids. But there hasn't been any car cyclist conflict to date, so we haven't proceeded with that. We did budget for it in 2019, but it wasn't necessary, so we didn't pursue it because there was no problem.
Thank you.
I just would add to that, because in previous talks with Scott Slater, it's not necessarily off the table in terms of the school district's wishes. They would still, there is some concern with kids getting into the parking lot and through the parking lot to the bike park down the path that is existing. So the school district is, while not pushing for the path to go in, they're still interested in there being some sort of other access to the bike park.
Well, let's open it up. There's just seems to be more and more complications to it, but let's see if council is willing to just let us have a look at this and try to get all those things into perspective and see how it can go. Anybody have any further comments on that part of it? I mean, I can't think of anywhere else. Obviously, that would be the easiest place to go in, but you know, the other thing is, once you do the survey, like I said, that first part is very steep, and you might have to, you might end up here somewhere to get across on a half decent property.
Can I ask?
Yeah,
I wanted to ask Glenn in terms of like scale of doing assessment of access is like how much harder is it to look at, you know, sort of all potential access and have it on some sort of chart? Because I've never seen that. I've heard talked about, you know, like Chris at one point did something to look at the access off of Miller. I've never seen anything. I think it was like a verbal report to Bob, and it'd be nice to just have a chart and be like, well, order of magnitude, this is going to involve moving this much stuff, and it's going to cost this much, and this way it'll be, you know, it's not exact, but it gives something to work with. Like,
Yeah, I was thinking the very same thing. I mean, there's still a question of access off Miller. We could literally do a quick assessment of all options and create that matrix for the help decision making. And we don't need to survey it. There's LiDAR information, which is just a digital surface of the ground, which is fine for this assessment. So it wouldn't take a lot of effort.
Okay, so Tom, go ahead.
I was just gonna add a point on that potential access at Mont Gardner where it does drop quite steeply. There will need to be a bridge.
Yes.
So the bridge
Right.
could help mitigate that slope probably.
And get some of the environmental area.
Yeah.
Would this be combined with taking a look at the road access to that parcel?
That's hard to say. Obviously, we want to come in somewhere where, you know, enter into there somewhere that is workable to get to the rest of the property.
That seems like it's almost the same criteria in terms of steepness.
Yeah.
And certainly, you know, if we need a road access, we could certainly do a trail beside it.
Yeah.
Right there.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
And so they could share that.
Yeah.
And it'd be a little bit safer for the most part, yeah.
I just wonder if, from what I'm hearing here, I just wonder if we should just amend that little resolution we put in there, that recommendation that it's to look at the overall access to Lot 2 and not concentrate just on Mount Gardner Road.
So take out the Metro Vancouver Parks, just say investigate access in general, or include the.
Or include, maybe say.
No, you can leave Metro Parks in there
Yeah.
because that'll cover it, but I think that's going to be a further step. But let's leave it in there anyway, then it's done. And let's look at the more extended report on access to that. And it'll include into Lot 2. It'll include obviously probably a couple of sections off of Miller Road, whether we, you know, there's this one here that we talk about coming up here. Yeah, there's this one here, which I think we've already done some work on, and we've got an unbelievable cost. Obviously, there's this one through here, or the community center, which may or may not, you know, who knows what's gonna happen there, hopefully shortly. Not preferable. If it was, we'd have to put some kind of an overpass in or something, I think, to mitigate that issue. And again, that's gonna become a straight up trunk road, which is not advisable. And this one is, as far as I can see, are the only, you know, avenues, unless somebody can come up with something else. But we do have to move that forward, only, and if, you know, if we're ever gonna do anything on lot 2, it's gotta, we gotta have access to it. And I certainly don't mind, like everybody said, we can't just have one in and out. I don't mind having another road that could access the end of this in an emergency situation. I mean, that would obviously probably be okay. All right.
So can you read that back?
Yeah, so I've got, the committee requests that council approve investigation into potential land swaps with Metro Vancouver Parks, including access to lot 2 off of Mount Gardner Road, and the council directs staff to provide a report regarding all possible accesses to lot 2, including access via Miller Road, the community center parcel north of Warren Court, and Mount Gardner Road. So,
That's very
no?
specific.
Could I ask to sever
Yeah.
those?
Yeah, okay. So the first one is just about Metro Vancouver, that's one resolution. The second one, that the committee recommend that council direct staff, I'm going to read that again, to provide a report regarding all possible accesses to lot 2.
Yeah.
Just leave it there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good. All right, perfect.
I'll
Yeah.
move the first one.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Second? David? All in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous. And the other one, I'll move it.
Second.
Tom, all in favor? Good, okay, we'll get that on way anyways. It's gonna have to get done, so.
I asked to sever because I think.
Thank you,
it'll be
Bonnie, thank you,
easy for
Shauna.
council to
Appreciate the
deal with
input.
as separate issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the next one here is this, it was identification of Snug Cove, which I think we're gonna move into a closed meeting a little bit later due to the sensitivity of that issue. So we're gonna go down to new business, we're gonna talk about parking in the Cove. Now, I don't know, who's gonna put that on the
So
agenda?
that was staff and council.
Yeah, obviously, there's diminishing parking in the Cove. At the last council meeting, we approved the reduced parking for the little triangle lot, area 1 and lot 2. Reduced the parking there significantly. We're also, the medical center, it's not gonna start up next week, but that parking lot will be also diminished. So there's gonna be quite a deficit of parking in the Cove. Maureen brought up a motion at council that we once again look at the parking in the Cove, because it's got to be done, and it's I think we're going to have a real issue there. I don't think we can densify the Cove without producing some kind of parking that aligns with it. Just as a little side note, I was talking to a friend of mine who just bought one of those condos up in Edgemont Village, really nice ones there. And he was saying that North Van, I guess it's district, made them put 138 covered spots underneath that building. Just to supply parking for Edgemont Village. Public parking. Yeah, so that's, I mean, that's expensive as hell, but like you said, it probably costs me an extra $30,000 or something in my condo, but that's the way of the world. So I don't know, just to open up that discussion. We are going to look at it. If anybody's got any suggestions, obviously it's going to go back to staff, and Daniel's going to be looking at the parking once again, or somebody is in the planning department. That can be you, Daniel?
And I don't know if it's me or if it's like Public Works. I think last time we did it.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
You know, me and Bob and Bylaw, I think, all looking at it together. Because last time when we looked at it, it's looking at, I mean, essentially the Cove for municipal
Yeah.
parking, it's like, it's road right of ways or
Yeah.
it's community land.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly,
It's like,
yeah,
that's kind
that's
of
it.
what it comes down to. So, you know, last time, that's when we built the one on lot 3, which has worked. And then Bob added the one on area 1.
Yeah.
But then both of which, for good reasons, are now getting developed. And sort of, okay, what's the next step? And it's, some of it might be looking at, okay, what's another sort of, in essence, temporary solution, like
Yeah.
3-1, or what's a longer term solution?
Yeah, well, I sure like the idea of parking, I always get the whole parking. thing.
We did touch on this at the last meeting too, just in
Yeah.
terms of the thought around the development of Lot 3 and the fact that because of the grade of that property, there is an opportunity there to have an underground structure and build over top of it.
Yeah.
And I was using Whistler as an example, which is much like Edgemont, really,
Yeah.
where the parking is required by the community to act. So this, in this case, the parking that could be created there would then be for the benefit of Snug Cove. And it's within easy distance of the Cove, and yet it's not right in front of your face when you're in the community, in the Snug Cove area itself. So I think there's some real value in thinking about that.
Absolutely, there's no question. I know Fritz here certainly.
One thing that
keen
would
on that
be,
part.
give comfort to the community if there's a bit of a phased plan.
Yeah.
Like some kind of clarity that, yes, you're kind of borrowing land for temporary parking, but there is a vision for the future.
The future,
And
yeah.
it goes somewhere else.
There's a replacement.
There's all these question marks, right? And then somehow, I think it could give some more, just comfort to the general public.
Yeah, on a short-term basis, I mean, we do have that land behind the Caring Center and behind the library in there that potentially, and again, on a short-term basis, could be opened up for some parking. There's quite a bit of land there.
But the other thing that the city of Vancouver, for instance, does, right? It really uses the cost of parking
Yeah.
to reduce traffic.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, like if you're not trying to
Oh,
park
yeah.
downtown, because you're paying $30 per day, right? You know.
Yeah, no, it's.
So I'm saying is that maybe Bowen isn't ready for that, but on the other hand, if not willing to pay stops everything from happening, and the cars have to hang from trees or so,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense either, and people aren't happy either. So the idea that something has value and it has some cost to it, you know what I mean?
It just is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, the unfortunate, well, not the unfortunate thing, but the housing we need on Bowen is affordable housing. And for affordable housing to put parking underneath their structure is almost
You know,
knocks it out of the
Yeah, I think you
affordable.
can actually, like, people that
I
live
can-
a distance from the Cove,
Yeah,
and if they have the security of having a parking stall,
yeah,
that they can even rent out when they're not here,
yeah,
I think it's not very difficult to get some capital.
yeah.
Yeah, you can, you know, if you sell parking spaces and you can rent them out, but you have certain times that you can use it yourself, for instance.
Yeah, for public.
Now you're not looking for something, you know what I mean? You gotta
Yeah,
actually-
no, there's gotta be a way, there's gotta be a
Yeah.
way to do it and manage it, there's absolutely no question, I mean, but I don't see with our present projects that we can, you know, ask these developers.
No, it's for the concept of putting a larger arcade.
Yes.
You don't have all the costs for the developer, and you don't know
Yeah,
how to finance it.
Yeah.
There is money available that people are willing to invest.
yeah, I guess, well.
Like, would you buy it?
No, this will be an interesting conversation to carry, yeah, no, I wouldn't buy it still. I think it'll be an interesting conversation to carry into the closed meeting, because I think we could have some initiatives in the code that, you know, is part of the densification, and if there is potential rezoning.
In my mind, it's more than just the densification that is really at issue here in terms of parking. And to me, there's two other parts to this that are not going to go away, and that is that there's a large percentage of the population that commutes on and off Bowen every day.
Mhm.
And they can't necessarily rely on the public transit system to make it fit their days, so they drive
Yeah.
down to the Cove and they get on the ferry. And then the other thought is that, you know, Snug Cove will continue to be the commercial center of Bowen Island. In order to ensure that thrives, people from other parts of the island have to be able to come into the Cove and take
Park.
advantage of those commercial amenities, and they've got to be able to park typically. So I think it's a bigger issue than just the densification, it's really the functionality of
The
how
island.
Bowen actually works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
But also if you have, for instance, free parking and it is a somewhat larger distance.
Yeah.
And your paid parking is closer, right? And somehow, you know, you actually, people have to pay some money to have the privilege to pay by, to park
Yeah.
right in the center, right?
Use your base situation.
Yeah, but I mean, you can say, well, that is socially not acceptable. On the other hand, otherwise, just all these cars are standing in spots where they really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For 12 hours a day or for a whole week or so.
Well, and I think Horseshoe Bay is a great example of that. You know, Horseshoe Bay's got a huge parking problem, and there's all kinds of illegal parking going on there because of the problem. There's not enough space actually being offered.
Yeah.
That's funny, because I find Horseshoe Bay a bit of an enigma because, and it's gonna get, of course, a whole lot worse, and I'm sure they're putting parking in that new building, but I always find a parking spot. There always seems to be one there. It's not like you're driving around for days trying to find parking, it's just.
I used to be a resident of Horseshoe Bay.
Oh, did you? Yeah, it's there.
People looking for parking spots were not my favorite people.
No, I bet, yeah. David, yes?
Just one thing about the point about the cost, of looking for affordable housing in the Cove and the cost of parking. But I would see, though obviously we've got some affordable housing moving into the Cove
Yes.
right now. But I would also see the development of that area as a blend of affordable and market housing.
Yes.
And that would be one way to afford some of the affordable housing by having some market housing. And so the market housing is an opportunity for more expensive parking.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, and I think any market housing we do put in the Cove is gonna be all underground. There's no question about that.
Has to be.
That'll be part of it.
And I mean, I think it's good too, what Tom had said about dividing out, like, what type of parking we're thinking about. Because if it's like,
Yeah.
for new residential development, you know, then I think we should be assuming that they're providing, you know, as part of that development, it's providing the parking that is
100%.
necessary, right? And
Yeah.
then, but then it's the parking, what the businesses, like, what parking we're providing for businesses in sort of like 2 hour,
Yeah.
3 hour parking. And then commuter parking is like a totally separate category.
That's right.
Parking, people are gonna stand here all day, sit, you know, park all day. And so it's kind of sort of dividing those out and saying, okay, housing going in, it's providing the parking on it.
Mhm.
What parking is needed for the businesses in the Cove and what's the municipality's role in that, and then the commuter parking. And then the commuter being sort of the different one too in terms of, you know, it's almost to support our climate initiatives in a sense of saying, our goal is to provide parking, which sort of is backwards in most places in terms of parking to promote people not driving, but because the promotion is you're gonna park here and you're gonna walk onto the ferry, and then
Right.
once you're on the mainland, you're not in a car and you're on the bus.
Yeah, exactly.
So by helping you, it's just the last mile thing. But then some of it does come into, how much is then the role is to provide free commuter parking versus paid in terms of, you know, you can pay for a commuter parking spot at the marina right now. So is it, you know, is the municipality's role to spend lots of money, say, building a parking lot behind the library? If there were no herons, there was lots of land there, would build a giant commuter parking lot that's free. Is that, you know, is that our role in saying, well, instead of paying here, you can now come for free and subsidize it? Or, you know, so it's sort of weighing who cost and benefit. You know,
Much as I hate to say it, I think the days of free parking in the Cove are gonna be limited. There just isn't enough parking.
And I think especially for that commuter parking thing, we say, well, maybe it's, you know, 2 hour parking where it turns over and stuff, maybe that's more appropriate for that as
Yeah.
opposed to the 12-hour full day parking.
Yeah.
I think we need to be really sensitive to price, because you put the price up on commuter parking, you might flip some people over to taking their cars.
Yeah.
And that just defeats the purpose.
No, we have to find that balance. There's absolutely no question. We have to find that balance. And I don't want to give parking to every car and have a whole bunch of empty parking spots down there. We have to follow the trends, not lead them. See what I mean?
I think we ought to put this item, the parking issue, in the closed session, because I think there's some big picture options of land swaps and things that could look at the big long-term picture.
Sure, we can, and that's what we're gonna do. We'll certainly bring parking into that, because like you say, there's some sensitive issues on that also.
So, Gary, just one more thing, it's really an information item I think we should provide. So the municipalities in the process of developing a climate change plan, and Dennis knows this, so he came to the APC for the night. But we should provide it as an information item for those of you, because you won't have seen it. And there's an issue there about exactly the issue you're talking about, providing transport. We need better transportation on the island so people can get to the Cove.
Correct.
For their, you know, and then commute by bus or whatever. Because we don't have that for half the island, you know, right now we don't have that kind of service, so we obviously need it. So that's one of the issues, but, you know, how we get there is it's tricky.
I will share that, David.
Yeah, just as an information item, they should just, and now it's being, it's right now that there's a strategy, a draft strategy, and it's going to an array of committees for comment and to staff for comment, and so it'll be refined, but nevertheless, it'll be worth having a look at.
I certainly like the concept of parking right too.
Yeah.
You know, there's no question, just to keep the congestion out of the Cove.
Yeah.
You know, and who knows, one day Seymour Bay might get going, but I don't see anything in the near future for that. That could relieve a lot of commuter parking in Snug. But
What I find interesting, I'm not sure how quickly that can develop, but if you make really small parking spaces that only fit really small cars, and these cars stay on the island, they're electric runabouts, and there are islands that do that. You know, even on Keats Island, you can get licenses that you can get here, you know, for golf carts, you can go to the road, right? So because we're not remote enough for this, right? But if you make the parking spaces small purpose, now everything is smaller. The aisles are smaller, everything is smaller. So you can probably get 2 times more cars in the same.
that's a good point.
So really,
Is to take a look, take a look at the traditional parking size.
Yeah, and you can park the big
Reduce
car
it by
lots.
25%, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I think that would be interesting because the mindset is electric, that the cars stay on the island and they're half the size. You can
Yeah.
And they turn really well, so your aisle in the middle doesn't have to be 24 feet. It can maybe be like 12 feet or so.
We're a little bit beyond golf carts, but I'm.
Well, you know, something
hear what
that
you're saying.
is something that fits most people. Like if you have, let's say if you have 2 cars, you know, and both people do, right? And you have a bigger one you keep at home, or you take it off the island, you go on holiday to Vancouver.
Yeah.
But all the small stuff, maybe you can make the local trips that don't need 4 seats, you know what I mean? You can probably do that.
Yeah.
You know, these cars are not super expensive either. Because you can charge them every night because they save time, you know?
Yeah. No, I think, I don't know, it's a really difficult situation, and we've been down this road before, and we've talked about the parking, not in this actual grouping, but, we've battled with the parking.
Yeah,
So,
so
we never come up with a,
But Gary, ICBC has a separate class, at least to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Years ago, I asked for them for it. And I remember on Keats Island,
Yeah.
I could ask them, why can't you drive a golf course car,
Yeah.
electric car on Keats Island? And he said, well, it's a separate class, and it's not available on Bowen Island, but maybe it's like, I don't know, who's the best, maybe from an engineering point of view. You know, that maybe ICBC can say, well, yeah, we have to create that class of vehicles that, you know what I mean?
yeah.
They
which
cannot
is-
go off island. That's really the key. They cannot leave the island.
What is that, there was that island that we saw that thing where they had all those golf carts and, where was
But
it?
it's
Community,
all-
well, it was up in the interior somewhere, I'm thinking it was either on
Yeah, they were looking into it.
the Okanagan Lake or something like, or Chase or maybe somewhere like that, but it was just, you looked at the place, it's just dead flat. Just dead flat, the community was, obviously very centered on a certain part of the river and that sort of thing, so I would say that from one end to the other wasn't more than half a mile, so I mean, that would lend itself to golf carts, but if you try taking a golf cart from here to Collins Point, it's.
Well, that's not a golf car. It can be something that, you know what I mean? If you just have a class of vehicle,
Yeah.
you know, it's electric and it has a certain size and it fits in a small, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna see more and more of that, and I mean, we have to have the flexibility to move into that scenario, there's no question about when it's gonna happen
But your parquets will
and
be,
how you plan
your
for it.
parquets will be a lot cheaper.
Oh, yeah, they certainly will, yeah, half the price, yeah. There you go.
Like even the span, so like in concrete slabs, right? It's
Yeah.
the span. You know,
Yeah.
it's 24 feet, you have to span, right?
Absolutely, yeah,
So everything goes back to a much less expensive form.
yeah. Maureen?
Yeah, I should just mention, two members of council voted against this, and their rationale for voting against it was essentially that in one instance, that you were going to respond to induced demand. You were going to have people down there who might not otherwise be there. So there was an assumption that this was going to result in increased parking in the Cove rather than replacement parking in the Cove. And the other councillor objected because he felt that it was inconsistent with the transportation plan, but didn't provide any details of the ways in which it was inconsistent with the transportation plan. There also was a concern that this was inconsistent with the climate action strategy, which I don't know if it is, but that was the claim.
All right, no argument.
We can't, yeah, we can't force people out of cars, we can just suggest it but what failed?
What?
Did that not go forward from council?
It passed.
Oh, there. Oh.
That's what we've been discussing.
Oh, I see, so it wasn't unanimous, it still passed, yeah. Understood, and, yeah. So once we get some kind of feedback on that, from the Transportation Advisory Committee and obviously from staff about the parking down there, I don't know. That was quite a procedure we went through last time, wasn't it, Dan? No, I don't think too much has changed. Now, I think we probably reduced the parking at the Gardena turnaround, Glenn?
Yeah, a few spots, yeah.
Just 3?
Yeah, probably about 3.
That's not too bad.
But the last time around, we increased them, so we're probably back at status quo as far
Yeah.
as Gardena is concerned, is my recollection.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see how the actual commuter numbers look. And I mean, are there less commuters driving down to the Cove and parking than there was 5 years ago, 3 years ago when we did that study? I don't know.
I'd say there's more.
Oh, you think so?
Oh, yeah. Well, I can tell you one place that's created more of that is Peter's bus service.
Yes. Oh, okay.
You know, I take that I only go in 4 days a week, but the days that I go in on the 7:30, that bus is full.
Yeah.
In fact, it's overloaded.
Yeah.
So there's a large increase that has happened there as a result of the convenience of that service.
Interesting.
Is anybody polled even the bus? Like, how many of those people are parking in the Cove versus are walking? Because like whenever I walk, and actually to take that 7:30 and I'm walking from where I am by the Legion, like there is a number of people who walk down, and I don't know for some of them, if there was a bigger parking lot right in the Cove, maybe they'd be driving down and parking. But because it's the perception is that it's tighter, so they're walking.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Is that something that would be useful to do, just to ask the transportation folks to survey?
So when council raised this issue back about 3-4 years ago, as you were discussing, I was not on council and I opposed the parking. Maureen argued with me, and she actually convinced me she was right and I was wrong. That if you want people to take what you were saying, if you want people to take the biggest greenhouse gas emissions from Rhode Island are actually people driving from Port Bay to wherever they're going. So if you want to get those people on a bus, they need to get down and go somehow. Yeah. And the trouble with Peter's bus is that it arrives, it's not coordinated with the buses on the island. So you get off the water taxi, you've got home from downtown in 45 minutes, or you're onto the island in 45 minutes, which is fantastic, but then what?
Exactly.
And so if you walk home, that's great, but if you're on the other side of the island, you can't.
That's right.
And so you hitchhike, or you wait for the bus, which is ridiculous, because then you've got a 45-minute wait. And so it's, and to the point that a couple of councillors opposed it, I think we need to think of this in a holistic way, so that we're not just saying, we're going to make more parking, because then people will get upset, and that it'd be inconsistent with the climate change plan. That it would be consistent with the climate change plan if you're finding a way to get people onto the bus for that other part of it. So in other words, it needs to be thought of comprehensively rather than just, knee jerk, we gotta have more parking because everyone wants parking.
Well, that's it. Do we lead or do we follow? And I think in the circumstances, I think we should
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah.
There's no question about that because we don't know what's going to happen. And we don't know what's going to happen with these developments. So it's not in a big hurry to change anything because I don't see any change.
I'll add a tiny bit more. Like, as Gary said, there's park and ride. Like there's a park and ride over by the far away fire hall, the west fire hall. And so anyone who lives right down in Gary's area could go park there. The trouble is, then you gotta, you're only going for like 5 minutes on the bus, but you gotta pay for, I don't even know what it is, $2 or $3 or whatever the heck it is. And so that, well, gee, if I gotta, wait for the bus and then pay for the bus for this tiny little ride, I might as well just go down to the Cove. So in the climate change plan, one of the things it talks about is eventually fare-free to cross on the island. But how in the heck are we gonna get that? Who knows? So those are all the kind of things that park and ride would be great, but if you then have to pay for the bus, it's sort of, and it's free parking in the Cove. But if we make parking in the Cove cost money, then it's all a tricky business.
Yeah, because all those people on Peter's bus now are on the public transportation, which they would be buying a ticket for if they were coming out of the park and rides.
Yeah. I did a survey on the bus, so I was part of a group that was trying to get Peter's bus going back years ago. And one of the things we need to do is demonstrate to TransLink that we're just robbing people from the 257. So I actually did a little survey at that time, and a bunch of people had ditched their cars. They got rid of their parking spot in Horseshoe Bay or sold their second car and so on. So there's a bunch of people who are, leaving their cars behind as a result of that convenience. So, it's all important information that needs to be sort of thought out carefully.
Yeah, it's certainly a good thing.
The other factor in that, Dave, I totally agree with what you're saying, Dave. The other factor in that to me, and I'm a regular person on that run, is that the 257 is not a great experience. And so when Peter's bus service started, we were early starter of all of that, but it's evolved into a much more reliable, we're not totally reliable, but it's more reliable than it's ever been. And that's attracting a lot more people.
Yeah.
Like that's why that service is taking on a lot more people now than it ever has. But it is just such a better experience for Bowen Island people. Honest to God, there's no comparison.
Yeah. And if you make it convenient, more convenient than the car, people will take the bus. They will. Usually, the bus is way less convenient than the car, and the 257 and the 10-minute rule at the ferry are perfect examples of why
you get rid of all that.
it's a very unhappy experience.
That's right.
So we need to rebrand parking in the Cove as something other than parking. It needs a new name. Let's do it. Okay.
What were you thinking of?
I'm not sure yet, but I mean, the notion, parking just elicits an automatic knee-jerk
Yes.
no
Yeah.
from some people. Whereas if it is perceived
Facilitation
in
or
that
something.
larger
Yeah.
perspective.
That's a really good idea, actually. You're right. As soon as you say the word parking, it has a negative connotation.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. Probably so, should have. So has anybody got any other business? We got Metro Housing.
Sure.
David was going to talk to that.
Yeah, so this is a new thing that's in the Metro Vancouver budget. So there's a new 10-year housing plan that I can email to everybody. So you can have a look at it. But one of the key elements is that Metro Vancouver, well, first of all, what Metro Vancouver housing is, it's pretty amazing. A third of it's rental housing. A third of it is based on income. The other 2/3 are average to below average in terms of markets, below market. The whole thing is below market, some of it based on income. What they recognize they need to expand, and so what they're doing is they've added $4 million to the budget this year, and they're looking for partners. They're looking for municipal partners who happen to have municipal land that's available. And a request for RFP or maybe expression of interest will go out in January, February, looking for potential partners. So we happen to have some land. They're not only looking for land, they're looking for nonprofit partners as well. So we happen to be in a very good situation in that we've got land, we've got nonprofit partners. I've spoken to our nonprofit partners, potential ones, and they're very interested in this. So we should all become familiar with what Metro Vancouver is doing, and then in terms of our land, we should think of it, okay, what are the opportunities here in terms of Metro Vancouver housing? We have one obvious one right now, down in lot 3 with our nonprofit, but there's other spots as well we can think of in terms of ROI. So that's, you should have a look at that. I'll email the link to you, or I'll send it.
I can send it right now.
Yeah, you can send it right now, you probably got it, right?
Yeah.
The 10-year plan. You have to read the whole 10-year plan, it's about 50, 60 pages. The simple part is the budget, $4 million, looking for partners.
Yeah. Very, very easy.
I like your summary.
Pick me, yeah. So let's just say that we were entertaining that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we need a little bit more time to think about it than the last 3 seconds I just gave you, but where would we open up some land for them? And would it compromise the current applications that are in play? Probably not one of them, but maybe the other one. You know, what effect would that have on Birch?
Well, I did speak to Robin.
Yes.
And she's very keen.
So she would operate 2 of them separately?
No, she would work with a partnership with Metro Vancouver, so sort of looking to the opportunity of working with, because Metro is looking for free land.
Yeah.
They're looking for more money, so that's the province.
Mhm.
They're looking for NGOs who might have brought in, help them bring in more money and help them develop the whole plan, and we've got that with Birch. So it's putting all those pieces together is the amazing opportunity we have, because we're far enough along that we've got something to talk about. We're not so far enough along that it's kind of, pieces are in cement or anything like that. So
I think it's a really good point.
Yeah.
The Birch project is far enough along that it would be of interest, I'm sure.
And it's small enough, like they've got $4 million, so $4 million, not a heck of a lot of money. And so if we had a great big proposal, tiny going on, well, that would kind of make no sense, because they need to house people all over the region. But a little proposal on board that wouldn't take a heck of a lot of money and would help use their expertise, I think could be really interesting. And as I mentioned, the new person who's in charge of housing, I know really well, and I've worked with her for years, and she's very, very smart. She's so smart it makes my head hurt trying to keep up with her.
So last week, Robin and I had the privilege of meeting in Daniel's office, because he wasn't there.
Oh.
We kept it totally clean. Put everything back, But, and Robin was sitting in Daniel's chair, so he felt that privilege. But so the idea was to kind of put a summary together of the actual of the OCP and how it affects housing, right? But in the meantime, because the original idea from Birch was to go to parcel 3, right, and more, and I kind of said to her that our committee here thinks that it's too precious and it's probably not going to happen, and she wasn't discouraged, and because I said to her it's better to do something that is more feasible and just go for it. And then in lot 1, because I've been thinking about this phased approach with septic, and I think, and I spoke with her and said, well, maybe that's the way to go forward. She was a bit hesitant in putting something forward for lot 1, and I said, no, you should do that, because that seems to be the one where we actually wanted to go. Right? Mm-hmm. So then, so the idea about the phased septic is, and I think that the engineering group here will have an opinion about it too. But I actually tried it for another parcel. I can't really say which parcel it is for a potential project that we have here. But the idea is that you actually have, you know the septic capacity of the land, right? Yeah. It's a little bit of an example of Belterra that happens to have a septic field beside them. That if they could hook up to the sewer, they could build more, they could do something else with the land, right? So the idea is that either it's a septic field that kind of grows, like a phase, right? Maybe it's in 2 phases or 3 phases, and it allows you to build the 3 phases. But then there's a fair amount of land that is reserved for septic. It doesn't have to be all in one location. In my mind, it could be 2 or 3 different fields. Mm-hmm. But the moment there would be access, there would be municipal. Yeah. But I think it actually allows something to happen, and we don't always have to wait. And if you go through the calculations of how much it costs to put these fields in, I expect it to be actually affordable. Yeah. It's like every single family house puts in a septic field only for that house. Right? Yeah. Now you have a shared field that maybe 20 or 30 units are using, and they're not that big with all these new treatment systems.
No, exactly, no.
I we actually went through an exercise for that, for Parks from Bowen, and to me it looked like pretty darn good. Like, it's not, you don't get like a super high density, but you get a high density where you build.
Mhm.
And then beside it is land that you cannot build, but you can build for the future.
Yeah.
You know, right? And so then also maybe the other thought was that, and I don't know if that's something that can be addressed, is that, is it true that if, that there is no, that you can serve a small part, right,
Yeah.
of lot one, easier, maybe with using the existing system here, maybe some upgrading, a more modest upgrading somewhere else, because it's these treatment facilities that make a huge difference.
Mhm.
You know,
Oh, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
like years ago, 30 years ago, we did whatever, 25 years ago, we did it was actually for Sug Harbor House at the time. And they're on a system that you can bring to water.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
25 years ago, you know what I mean?
They take 3 or
At
whatever.
that time, it was expensive, but it allowed them to put in this, whatever, 30 more, guest rooms.
Yeah, we put a septic field in a house that was half the size of this table. Yeah, that's it, that's all you need.
Yeah, so.
Just something to disperse the effluent, that's all.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's,
But I
to
think,
your
what I'm trying to
point,
say is
you're
that I think
absolutely
that Robin, and I think I find myself talking with her, because I was here every once in a while, is going to put that forward as a proposal.
Yeah.
And that may be something that sits in community land, and she will take the 4 million if you have it available. Maybe you'll make 40,000 or so.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know how, I guess that'll be done internally then. Discussion with Robin and that sort of thing, just to make sure that she knows that's available. Yeah, Maureen?
I'm wondering about what the next steps are with Metro. And I've looked over the report. You said that there might be an EOI or RFP coming up.
Yeah.
Do you know if they're also intending to have meetings with municipal staff? How are they going to get their inventory of potential sites?
I assume simply by putting an EOI out, asking for expressions of interest and seeing what happened and so on. But I could, I would be happy to email Heather, or I usually see her at every board meeting because she's sitting right there, and talk to her about it.
So the letter that Steph just sent around, at the end of the letter, so it's like the 2-page cover letter they sent, that Steph just sent to the committee, that they sent to Kathy and the municipality. It's like, it says at the end, for more information or to discuss potential opportunities for collaboration, please feel free to have your staff contact Metro Vancouver housing staff at housing@metrovancouver.org. So maybe that should be on my list to do as like an initial contact and say, yes, please, we will take all $4 million. We'll let you know.
Yeah, we'll take it all.
It's on the action list.
That's interesting. I guess we have to get all the relevant people. Obviously,
Yeah.
Robin knows about this. And,
Yeah.
certainly take advantage of it.
And I have David
We
think
are,
about it. He
it
does.
is a collaboration with us already.
Yeah.
The lands
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Now, when you were talking about lot 1, Fritz, were you talking about the upper part or the lower part?
Well,
Or
just talking about.
neither or?
Just talking more like forming.
Yes.
Not everybody.
Yeah.
But that was the idea anyway.
Yeah.
But and then here, like, it takes time to study, of course, right?
Yeah.
But this is more flat, so
Yeah.
maybe there's a field here, you know what I mean, and the surface, because it's all pumped anyway, right? So like maybe the distance of the field between the first space doesn't matter, or maybe it's a more smaller field, I don't know. But it's more like a septic study.
It's interesting, that old library lot there underneath there might be a good potential too. That's a little triangle thing
Yeah.
underneath where you were just looking.
Yeah.
That's an interesting piece of property. Anyway, yeah, we gotta keep on top of that for sure. $4 million in this day and age doesn't go very far.
No,
And what's going forward, what are they talking about money?
That's it.
4 million a year?
So, no.
That's it, so one shot
Giving
deal,
4 million a
4
year
million.
to parks for parks acquisition. I think if this goes well, they probably would be, the board would be pushing for more. But The tricky part with Metro Vancouver right now, and this doesn't affect us, but it affects most of the places, is that they need to spend an awful lot of money on sewage and on water. And so everybody's going to be scared to death about actually putting more capital in, and this one.
Transit.
Oh, and then there's transit. Because they're going to tertiary treatment on the North Shore, but then there's the other plant, by the airport that needs.
You can't imagine what that's costing on the North Shore. It's just-
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there's a lot of money that needs to be spent on that.
So, yeah, just keep on top of that for sure. And if Robin can get interested in,
But to be clear about the 4 million, like there's 22 local governments.
yeah,
So 22 into 4.
yeah, yeah.
And you know, in terms of housing people, housing people on Bowen Island wouldn't be the #1 priority, in the region. So, that's why a small.
Yeah, but even if you could frame it in just a small package, like 500,000 or 800,000 or something like that.
Just do something small.
Yeah.
But it would be the expertise
Yeah.
that I bring as well.
Yeah,
We
oh,
can actually
absolutely.
visit all that.
Oh, I'm sure it'll grow. Maureen?
We just have finished the island survey for 2019, and Sophie's pulling together all of the data. There's a section in there on housing, and she's done comparisons with the 2018 survey. It would be very much worthwhile for this committee to take a look at it. There are some, from my perspective, fairly significant shifts in the public responses in terms of their understanding of the level of government that's primarily responsible for housing. The community is seeing the federal and provincial government as having larger roles than they did in 2018. So for example, in 2018, about 48% of the respondents said that the local government was the one that was primarily responsible. That's now down to 36%. That's quite a big shift in a short period. And then there were questions regarding degree of satisfaction and degree of importance of things like housing types and so on. And there's shifts there as well. Some of the work points that are a new question in 2019, how satisfied are you with your current housing? 87% are satisfied with their current housing. So there are some points in here that I think we need to discuss at a later meeting, because it is relevant to planning for housing.
Going forward, yeah.
But also planning for use of community lands. There's been movement in public perception.
Oh, that's great, and we'll definitely get that on the agenda for the next time, because that's imperative.
Yeah.
And just along those lines, Daniel, what's happening with the housing survey? Or is it been let yet?
So we've hired Urbanics is the consulting firm.
Yeah.
And the scheduled end date is end of March 2020. So they're coming to meet with me next week, the week after, the first week of December, and then they're coming to the Housing Advisory Committee that Friday for their meeting as well.
Oh, good.
We had the original schedule, had them starting the consultation piece of it in December, and instead we rejigged their schedule to start that in January. We thought it wasn't as effective doing it over Christmas, was not going to turn out well, so it's sort of been delayed. We've pushed it all back a month, but yeah.
In this world, 3 months is nothing, is it really? It's just like,
Yeah.
all right, right around the corner. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good news, because that's definitely going to be a big factor going forward anywhere. Okay, so I think we're done with that part of it, which is very interesting. So we're going to move into this, what is now 5.4, and we're going to move into a closed meeting, and it's going to be under section 91A, and part of the council meeting. Sorry? This one here? Oh, the other side. Oh, that's what it is.
So it's really from the top and then straight to the bottom.
Notice of the council meetings, and then down here. The notice under section 2 must include the date, time, and place of meeting, describe the general terms, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that notices special council meeting may be waived by unanimous vote of all council members, which we're fortunate to have here today. And so we'll have a vote on that, and it's going to be under a section E, which is the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements if the council considers that disclosure may reasonably be expected to earn the interest of the municipality, which is a bit of a stretch, but I think that fits into just this discussion about reasonably made goal. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Everybody enjoy the weekend?
Yeah, sure will. Somebody want to move that? Thank you, David and Fritz for the second. All in favor? Good, okay. So let's just, we'll finish up.